Hi YouTube, welcome back to Wtf Rc Cars. So, we have the Noble Pro, the FRM303, and I'm going to show you a basic setup today to give you some idea of how you configure this. We're going to use the FGR4 as the receiver that connects to the FRM303, and then the receiver that you're going to put in your RC, we're going to go with the ftr12b, so that's an enhanced flight receiver. And I'm going to take you through a few of the things that may be confusing or surprising. This is a lot easier to set up than what it seems to be if you read the instructions. It's far less confusing. And there's a few interesting things in this, as in what you need as a receiver for this compared to what you need as the receiver in the car to get the best out of this. And it's also far more configurable and far more open than what it seems. But let's bring you in for a close-up look and see if I can explain this in a nice, easy, straightforward way so we don't get all confused. And this really is a very interesting piece of kit. So let's bring you in and see how we go. Right, so first thing we're going to start with is how to configure your Noble Pro. This will be very similar, if not exactly the same, on the MB4. And I will do some follow-up videos using the MB4, so it'll take you through any slight differences between them. But basically, first thing we're going to want to do is select a model memory. So I've got this on 20. Then we're going to have to give it a name. So, right. Then you're going to have to decide on what receiver you want on the RC side of it. So we're going to be going with the FGR4 12 channel receiver. So in order to allow us to assign the 12 channels, we need to set this to 12 channel mode. You can set it to 2 channel mode regardless of what receiver you've got on the other end of it, but we're going with 12 channel. So once we've got that set, we can now come out, we can go into as RX set. Then basically now we need to choose what receiver we're going to use for the sort of interface between this and your FRM303. Now for this one I'm going to be using the FGR4 V2, mainly because we've got an external antenna. It can handle quite a bit of voltage, and it's just a very easy one to use. Now, all I would do with all these receivers, whatever you're going to use, make sure you are running the latest firmware. I've done videos on how to update all these from the MB4 and from the Pro, but just make sure they're on latest firmware, make sure your radio's on latest firmware, then you're not going to run into any weird issues. The big advantage, or one of them, that this has got over the 303, if you can remember my video on the 302, you had to have a specific version of firmware on the receiver that it connected to. This, because it's a much more updated piece of hardware, this will connect to any of the Flysky receivers. So there's no messing around now with one version of firmware for your transmitter, one for the actual range extender. So update all your receivers and you should be good to go. So once we've got this all up to date, we need to bind it. So we're going to go into bind, and this is one where you're going to have to choose what receiver you use for the first receiver. So you've got classic and enhanced. So in this one, we're going to go for a classic. So then all we need to do is put this bind plug in. We need to supply power. So let's see if I can do this. So we get this into bind mode. It's a classic receiver. So we start bind. Binding successful. Then we just need to take the power off. And then you just need to supply it some power. So we've got it bound up. Then we want to go to interface protocol. Then we're going to go to serial. We're going to swap it to S-bus. Then we're just going to back out. Then, just so I can show you that this works all the way up to 12 channel, we're going to go into auxiliary. We're going to go all the way down to channel 12. In fact, I'll leave it named as channel 12. And then I'm going to set it to this variable dial on the back. So just as a 3-position switch should be good enough for me to demonstrate that it works. So configuration wise, that's pretty much it. If we swap, let's swap channel 3 to channel 12, so at least you'll be able to see on screen what it's doing. But you can assign all 12 channels. Now, this is where it gets interesting. We don't need to bind this as a 12-channel receiver. This doesn't have to be a 12-channel receiver. As you see, we've only got 4 channels. So, now we're going to move along to setting up our FRM303. So, to set our actual range extender up, you're going to have to choose your antenna, and these just screw on. So we've got his antenna in place. Now you're going to have to choose your cable. So the actual cable I'm going to be using, we've got the plug connected, and we've got black, yellow and white. So we're going to plug this cable directly into the servo port, and that should give us our S-bus connectivity. Then we're going to plug the other end into our FRM303. Now we're going to need to power this up and tell it that we want the S-bus to be the signal that we're using. So on this, if we start with it turned off, the switch in the center, we're then going to need to supply power, and you can supply that to any of the ports. So you're going to want to hold the up position. You're going to want to turn it on. And then when it lights up blue, you've got a number of flashes that it'll do. So you can see this is flashing a 2 pattern. So if you check in the manual, it will tell you what all these are. So basically, if you press up and down, it will change the modes. It'll give you a pronounced beep when you're on the last mode. So basically, if we press up all the way, this will be looking for the 5 flashes, so it's the open source protocol. If we come down one, we'll get 4 flashes, and that is the 1.5M UART. If you press down again, we'll get 3 flashes. This is the closed source protocol 1.5 UART. This is the default. If you press down again, we'll get the 2 flashes. This is the S-bus setting. If you press down again, you'll get PPM. So this is just 1 flash. So because we've set the transmitter on S-bus, we need it to have 2 flashes on this. So then press and hold the OK button. You'll get a beep. That's now telling you that this is set to S-bus. We now have the transmitter set to S-bus. So all we're going to do is power it on.
Welcome to Noble.
So we have as receiver, which is going to be the ftr12b. We're going to need an ESC. So I'm going to plug that into channel 2. We've got one of his servos that I'm going to plug into channel 12. So the blue one's going to be as channel 12, and then I'll plug this one into channel 1. And this is just because on this setup we've got 12 channels, so I'm going to show you don't need 12 channels on the FGR4, sorry, to power a 12 channel receiver. Then we're going to connect our LiPo to power everything. We're going to turn the receiver on with the bind button held down. So we've got this all set up, and this is now looking to bind. Then we're going to power up our transmitter.
Welcome to Noble.
We're going to turn on our range extender. Then we need to tell this to search. So we're going to press and hold the center button. This is now asking you what mode you want it to search in. You have a bunch of different modes. So basically, all we're going to look to do is match the mode on the FRM303, just same as you would on a transmitter. It's going to be classic or enhanced. But basically, you press and hold the OK button, then you've got up and down. So you've got a beep at either end. So if you're all the way up, you'll have 4 flashes, which is routine 18 channel one way. That would be for an enhanced receiver. You've got routine 18 channel two way, which is 3 flashes. So that's an enhanced two way. You have classic 18 channel one way, which is just 2 flashes. And then 1 flash is classic 18 channel two way. So we're going to go all the way up and then back down 1, because we're looking for an enhanced receiver but in two-way bind. So once you've got it set on the one you want, in this case it'll be 3 flashes. So then we're going to press the stick towards the right. It'll start looking for the enhanced two-way bind, which we've now got. You get a green light on the actual range extender. So if we just move this around a bit, so we have got as motor that'll now do as throttle and reverse. We have our steering servo. And you can see there's no discernible delay. And then we also have all the way up to channel 12. So we've got our Noble Pro. That will be sending a signal to our range extender. So basically, all you need to do, you could even Velcro this whole thing together. So you can do it in any way that is usable for you. You can also mount this nice and high, so you've got a really high point of takeoff to give you the best possible range. So you can mount this really high up on a tower if you like. You've got the actual receiver, which has got around about 350 meter range. But then you've got the huge extended range of the actual range booster. And this is using it in its most basic configuration. You do not need to have a 12 channel receiver on this side to power up to a 12 channel receiver on the other side, which is really nice. Whatever receiver you've got kicking about, or if you're not going to be far from this and you're going to use this as the actual range booster, you could even use the FGR4S, so a tiny little receiver, just to make the connection to the radio. I mean, the massive advantage of this, if like me you run multiple different RCs, you're not modding your actual transmitter, so you're not having a range extender bolted to the side of your transmitter. If you really wanted to, you could 3D print a little mount and just mount all this to the bottom of the transmitter and use it that way. But I find it more useful to be able to mount this in somewhere that'll be really useful for actual range. And it's nice not being tied to it. You're also not voiding your warranty or risking any damage to your transmitter. If you want to use this with a different car, you can bind multiple receivers to the actual range extender and it'll latch onto the one that's actually powered up, much like the Ant Plus receivers do. So you can have a bunch of different cars all fastened up to this. And then to swap transmitters, all you have to do is put the FGR4S into bind mode. You can already have this configured on multiple ones, and then you just need to bind them to this, and then this will search for whatever receiver is powered on once you've bound it to it once. So that's quite useful. But yeah, really nice that there's no messing around with different firmware for receivers. And I mean, as you can see here, we're using a flight receiver with the dual antennas for maximum range from the range extender. You can use any receiver you like on this side. So whatever receiver you've got kicking about. If you're going to use something like an FGR4 with the big antenna and the longer range, then you've got round about 350 meters that you can actually place this to give you the biggest coverage over your speedrun track or circuit. And it's just a really, really useful, very easy way of getting massive range from any of the Flysky radios that are compatible with it. Technically, it just relays S-Bus, so I'm not sure what other radios are out there that support S-Bus that you could actually use this with, so it might be interesting to have a play around. And the actual transmitter itself will connect to all the Flysky receivers, so your range extender will go to all Flysky receivers. Then you have got the open protocols, which I don't have any receivers that support that, but in theory you don't need to go with a Flysky receiver. If it supports the open protocol, then you can set this to it and it will bind to it and relay your signal. But hopefully that's not too confusing. There are many other things and setups that you can do with this, so I'll do more videos showing you how to use it with different transmitters, how to use it with different receivers, and how to put it into different modes. But let's wrap this one up. So there you have it. That's one of the configurations. I'm going to be running through all different ones. There's different ways to connect it to different receivers. There's different options that you've got. There's different ways of powering this. But that's just a basic setup that should get you up and running and should give you a good base to start from. As I said, there's lots of different configurations, lots of different options with this. And there's also lots of other things you can do with this, as in the power it'll transmit and everything. But yeah, more videos to come. Hopefully that answers at least some of your questions and gives you a basic idea of where you're going to be starting from with this. But thanks again for watching Wtf Rc Cars. If you like this kind of content, don't forget to like and subscribe, hit the notification bell, share to friends and family, and catch you guys again in the next one.